Okay, so if your family is moving to the United States, you've got a lot on your plate. But one of the very first, most important things for your financial life, well, it all comes down to a single 9-digit number. And getting this right is a huge deal. Today, we're going to find out why. I want you to imagine this for a second. You've spent hours, maybe days, getting all your documents together, filling out your very first US tax return. You mail it in, you're hoping for a refund, and then you get a rejection letter from the IRS. It's so frustrating, and believe me, it happens all the time. And, so often, this whole nightmare comes down to just one missing number for one person in your family. It's a really common mistake, but it can cause some major delays. So, what exactly went wrong here? But we're going to break all of this down step by step so you can get it right the first time, no problem. Our goal here is simple: to make sure that rejected tax return is something you never, ever have to deal with. So to find the right answer, we've got to understand the problem first. Let's walk through a pretty typical story of how this all plays out. Okay, so let's meet our example family. We've got an executive who's been transferred by their company over to a U.S. office. They're on an L1 visa, and they've brought their spouse and their 2 kids, who are all here on what are called L2 visas. This is a super common scenario. And just like most families, their goals are pretty straightforward, right? They want to file their taxes together, jointly, because that's almost always better. And of course, they want to claim their kids as dependents so they can get important benefits like the child tax credit. I mean, this can seriously lower their tax bill or even get them a nice refund. But even with all that, their tax return got bounced right back by the IRS. So here's the thing. The entire problem and the solution, it all comes down to understanding the difference between two very important but very different 9-digit numbers. All right, so let's define these two numbers. Once you see the difference, everything else is going to click into place. First up, we've got the Social Security number, the SSN. This is the one most people have heard of. It's given out by the Social Security Administration. And here's the key. Its main purpose is tied to work. If you have permission to work in the U.S., you need an SSN. It's how your wages are tracked, and it's what determines if you can get Social Security benefits later on. Then, on the other hand, there's the Individual Taxpayer Identification Number, or ITIN. Now notice who issues this one, the IRS, not the Social Security Administration. That's a huge clue right there. An ITIN is purely a tax processing number. That's it. It's for people who need to file U.S. taxes, but for whatever reason aren't eligible to get an SSN. Okay, so let's put it side by side. This is really the bottom line. An SSN is for work, taxes, and benefits. An ITIN is only for taxes. It does not give you permission to work, and it has nothing to do with Social Security benefits. The rule is just this simple. If you can work, you get an SSN. If you can't work, but you need to be on a tax return, you get an ITIN. And here's a great little trick so you can tell them apart instantly. An ITIN looks just like an SSN. It's 9 digits, same format, but it will always start with the number 9. It's a really easy way to know exactly which number you're looking at. All right, definitions are done. Let's apply this to our family from the L1 visa program and figure out exactly who needs what. So for the parents, it's pretty simple. The L1 executive is obviously here for a job, so they get an SSN. And their spouse on the L2 visa is also automatically allowed to work just by having that visa. They don't even need a separate work permit. So that means both of them are eligible for and should get Social Security numbers. Now, the children. This is the exact spot where our family in the example made a mistake. As dependents on an L2 visa, the kids are not authorized to work. And remember our number 1 rule, no work authorization, no SSN. So they can't get one. But, and this is the absolute key, to be listed as a dependent on that tax return, they still need a taxpayer ID number. And that's where the ITIN comes into play. The children need ITINs. And this all leads us to the golden rule of tax filing. The IRS has to be able to identify every single person on a return. It doesn't matter if you're the main filer, the spouse, or a little kid being claimed as a dependent. Everybody needs a valid ID number. Without it, you can't get those valuable tax credits, and your return is almost guaranteed to get rejected. So we've covered the what and the why. Now let's get practical and talk about the how. Here are the actual steps you need to take to get these numbers. Okay, getting an SSN. This is all handled by the Social Security Administration. You'll fill out a form called the SS5. You'll need to gather your original immigration documents, and I mean originals, not photocopies. Then you'll visit a local Social Security office. I definitely recommend making an appointment. The best part? It's totally free to apply. Now, the process for an ITN is totally different because this is an IRS thing. The form is called a W-7. And here's the really unique part. You usually submit the W-7 application at the same time as your completed federal tax return. You bundle the whole package together, the W-7, the tax return, and your original ID documents, and you mail it all straight to the IRS. And please, here is a pro tip that will save you so much grief. Plan ahead. Getting an ITIN is not an overnight thing. It can take anywhere from 7 to 11 weeks, sometimes even longer during the busy season. So don't wait. Apply for your kids' ITINs when you file your very first U.S. tax return. That way, everything gets processed together. Okay, let's wrap this all up with a final checklist. This should make everything crystal clear. This table really just lays it all out, doesn't it? It's your game plan, and it all boils down to that one simple question. Is this person authorized to work? If the answer is yes, they need an SSN. If the answer is no, but they have to be on a tax return, they need an ITIN. If you just follow that logic, you're going to have a successful tax filing. Look, if you only remember one thing from all of this, let it be this. SSN is for work, ITIN is for taxes. That's it. Match the right number to the right person for the right purpose, and you will completely avoid that dreaded rejection letter. And really, that's it. It might feel like a tiny little bureaucratic detail, but trust me, understanding this difference is a massive step. You have now officially decoded one of the biggest and most common puzzles for new families arriving in the U.S. You're all set for a much smoother tax season and a really successful financial start.